Hello out there, everybody. How's it going? Hope you guys are having a good day out there. We're excited to bring you guys our live stream today, our Ask Us Anything about the 2021 IEC season. I am Dane, one of the content developers at Moving to Canada, and I am joined today by Moving to Canada's editor and a past IEC participant himself, Mr. Hugo O'Doherty. Thank you so much for joining me today, Hugo. How are you doing?
Good. It's my pleasure, Dane. I'm really excited for this event. Um, it's not our usual live stream thing. We didn't think we'd be doing this IEC Ask Me Anything in the first week of March, but here we are. We got some big news. So it's a really exciting event for us to host today. I know that there have been a lot of questions pouring in. I'm excited to answer a few of those with you.
Yeah, we've
And
had
yeah,
a ton of questions come
yeah.
in the Facebook comment section ahead of time. I am just having a bit of problem with the playback here on Facebook. So if you guys watching can just drop a comment, let me know that everything's good on your end. That would be great. I'm hoping that you're all seeing this. But let's start just by giving a quick overview of the topics we're going to be covering today. You can see it right there in the slide. First, we're going to be covering, the big news of the week, the fact that IEC has opened for certain pools. Not all the pools have opened yet, but we're going to cover that. We're going to go over the basic requirements for IEC in 2021, and then cover some of the important changes that have taken place this year due to COVID. One of those really important changes is this new job offer requirement for working holiday participants. So you can see we've given that its very own segment here in the live stream. And riffing off that, we'll give you guys our resources on how to find a job in Canada, especially if you may be residing outside the country, which I know it can seem a bit of a daunting task, but we got some leads for you and some helpful resources. And finally, we're going to tell you guys how to make the most of your Canadian adventure. We've got some really cool things that we've been developing here at Moving to Canada to help you guys out with your IEC process. You can see I've stuck it right there in the pinned comment. Our tool, Moving to Canada Go. This is a free tool that will help you guys plan the whole IEC process on your own. So if there's stuff that we don't cover today and you want more details, you can sign up for Moving to Canada Go. You give us just like a little bit of information, where you're from, like your age, and it will generate like a task list that tells you in detail what you have to do for each stage of the process. So anything we don't cover here, just head over to that tool, and it can really be your best friend throughout this whole process. And I've got a bunch of people telling me that everything is working well. So that's good. I can't see us, Hugo, so that's a bit sad for me, but that's okay. I see you all the time.
I can see you, Dane, and you look great.
Oh, thank you. We both, I realized we both like wore plaid today. So great. Very Canadian of us.
Yeah.
So without further ado, we're going to jump into it. If at any time you guys have questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments. I can see the comments. I am following along. We'll take some of your questions live, but we are going to jump into our first topic for today, which is the big news that the IEC 2021 season has opened. So Hugo, what can you tell our viewers about this?
Yeah, so I'm going to put two dates out there. Most IEC pools opened March 1st, which was Monday just passed. And then the first round of invitations are going out March 8th, which is the Monday coming. That news has just come in just in the last 24 hours for the first round of invitations. Most pools opened on Monday. Um, just some big hitters. The UK pool opened. I know that there was some glitch initially with people being able to create their profile. It looks like that's been sorted out now.
For the
Um,
most part, we've
so
seen glitches for people
yeah,
from the UK all week. If it's still not totally working for you when you're from the UK, it has been moving on an upward trajectory over the course of the week, so that's good.
yeah. Australia, Ireland, France, a bunch of continental European countries, and a couple of others outside Europe as well. There's actually only a minority of pools that remain closed at this time, and we have seen some questions around when those might open. We can get into that later.
Yeah.
But for most pools, they are open, and from what we can see, those pools that are open, the first invitations are set to go out March 8th. Um, how many invitations may go out this Monday? We're not sure because there is a new requirements for this year. In fact, there's some changes this year, not just this one. But Dane, maybe you want to tell the people what the big one is for this year.
Yeah, so the big change for this year is that there is a new requirement for working holiday participants to have a job offer in order to receive an invitation. And we'll get into more detail about that here. We've got a whole FAQ section that we've written up to help you guys navigate that new requirement. But I do have pulled up on the Moving to Canada website. I'm scrolling through for all of you to see the opening dates for each participating country. And as you can see, as Hugo mentioned, most of these pools are open as of right now. There are some big countries that usually have large quotas, Germany, New Zealand, that haven't yet opened. And I know we've had some questions come through about when those will open. We don't know the answer to that question. This is not the first time that they've staggered the opening between different countries. They did it last year, I think. Was it with the UK in 2020? Hugo, do you remember?
2020 is a bit of a blur, Dane.
Yeah, I prefer to just forget that entire year.
No, I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. Just about the comments and questions, I can see the comments and questions coming in. We've got some really good questions so far. But Dave asked, where can we submit questions? So Dave, submit your question exactly where you asked that question. I can see them coming in, as can Dane. So whatever you want to ask us, just pop them in right there.
Yeah.
Also, like, we're down to take questions on anything. Like, it's not just about the application process. Like, don't forget that there's a year or two, or potentially even longer, of time in Canada for waiting for you after the application. So ask about employment, ask about lifestyle questions, ask about the weather. Doesn't
Ask us
matter.
how we're doing. We do these live streams all the time, and no one ever asks us how we're doing. It's hard out there. Uh, that's my attempt at humor. I'm trying for a more casual approach, Hugo.
We do.
So Inez, I see, asked, like, do we know why some of these countries didn't open up? We don't know. Again, this isn't uncommon. Like, it happened last year. It's happened before. So it's not unprecedented. That being said, it could be tied to some sort of COVID decisions that were made on the part of those countries. I'm thinking especially New Zealand. New Zealand seems to have some of the strictest COVID regulations in the world. Maybe that was some sort of bilateral conversation. But again, these are just speculation. We don't know for sure, and we can't tell you exactly when those things will change.
Don't forget that, in contrast to most Canadian immigration programs, this one's reciprocal. So New Zealanders or Germans or Irish or Australians have the opportunity to come to Canada through IEC. Similarly, Canadians have the opportunity to go to those countries through similar programs. So often when these programs open or close, that is like reciprocated on the other side. So it actually takes both governments to agree. And there is a pandemic that's ongoing. Dane, you mentioned New Zealand there. It might be a coincidence that New Zealand is closed right now, but it also happens to be the country that has dealt with COVID early and very well. So it might be related, but we don't know that for sure.
Yeah, it's possible. So let's talk through the basic requirements for IEC. Hugo, can you tell our viewers, what basically, like, what should they be assessing for if they're trying to determine if they're eligible? And
Yeah.
you can leave out this new job offer requirement. We're gonna do. I have it. You can see, guys, the headline. We're teasing it right here. We're gonna do a deep dive into that in just a moment. But aside from that job offer requirement, what are the basic eligibility requirements for IEC?
Yeah, be 18 years or older, and then under 30 or 35. Actually, not under or 30 or 35, because you can be 30 or 35. So, strictly speaking, I should say under 31 or 36, depending on your nationality. I know that for most IEC countries, the age limit extends to 35. So, among those are France, Ireland, Australia, a bunch of others. But for some, it's 30, and the one that jumps to my mind immediately is the UK.
Yeah, and again, I'm just scrolling through a page on the Moving to Canada website here for the different participating countries. And I'll pop a link to this in the description or in the comments section while Hugo's explaining here. And you can scroll through here. You'll be able to see the ages that are age range for your country as well as the available pools.
Yeah. And the other main thing is, yeah, you have to be from an eligible or hold a passport of an eligible country. Obviously, some people have multiple nationalities. So there are up to 35 countries. There are a couple of countries, Mexico and Ukraine, I think, are the two that are currently not, that would ordinarily have an IEC program with Canada, but don't have one today.
Yeah, and you'll see
So
Mexico and Ukraine in this list, but yeah,
it bounces between 30 and 35. I know that last year they added, I think it was Luxembourg, Portugal joined the party the year before. There was a big change for Italy this winter, where it moved from a 6-month thing to a 12-month thing, and you could renew it. So effectively, it's 24 months for Italians, which is great for them. And yeah, so it's have a passport from one of those countries and fit within the age range. And then just lastly, like it helps if you haven't committed a major crime.
yes.
Canada's check, it does ask for police certificates from not just your home country, but other countries you've lived in for extended periods. And obviously, if Canada deems that you have committed serious crimes or even some minor crimes, it's likely to reject your application. So it helps not to have been naughty in the last few years.
Exactly. I was going to make a bad joke there, but I held my tongue. So we got tons of questions about job offers and how to get jobs. We're going to do a whole section on that coming up here. But Adam asked a great question. 35 years of age means the completion of 35. Like, how does let's say I get an invitation and then I turn 36. Am I not going to be eligible anymore? How does that work?
So you get the invitation. Let's say you're 35 years and 11 months old, and then you apply. Actually, submit the application. Bearing in mind that there's only a 30-day window of opportunity to submit the application. So we're talking about a real edge case here. Dane, I believe that the age is locked in at the time of the invitation, but I'd have to double check.
Yeah, I believe that is correct as well.
Yeah.
We get that question a lot, which I know is stressing a lot of people out who were about to age out and wondering, is this going to open because of COVID? You know, there was a while there where we were all like, is IEC going to happen this year? Like, considering all of the wild things that are happening around the world.
It's a really good sign that it's opening. And I don't mean just with respect to IEC, just with the comfort level of various countries to welcome people. Really good sign, I have to say.
Mm-hmm. And Pramila asked a good question here as well. The participating country, is that based on your country of citizenship or the country that you live in?
Citizenship.
Right. And just so people are aware, if you have multiple citizenships, you have multiple passports, you can actually apply under both of those passports. So you can get some extra participations in there. And another thing to note there is that sometimes there's actually a residency requirement. This is only the case in not the majority of situations, but you have to actually be residing in your country of citizenship when you apply. So you might want to check on that before you submit your application or your profile as well. Now, we've got some people here asking, Inez just asked, does it help to submit an application for working holiday and young professionals? But just before we get into that sort of breakdown, Hugo, what is the difference between working holiday and young professionals and IEC? And I've heard of, the international co-op program. Like, there's a lot of titles and acronyms floating around here. Can you clarify a bit for our viewers?
Yeah. Often people use IEC and working holiday as one and the same thing. Strictly speaking, working holiday is one of 3 categories under the IEC program.
Mm-hmm.
You can assume, viewers, that if we're not specifically talking about the Young Professionals Program or the International Co-op Program, we are talking about the working holiday. Not only is it the most popular category within IEC, but it's also the one that has by far the highest quotas.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. Ireland, where I'm from, has an overall IEC quota of 10,700 spots, and of those, 10,500 are under the working holiday. So it has the biggest quota. It is the most popular. The reason being it's the most popular is that it's an open work permit. And what that means is that you can come to Canada. And I know that this year there is a job offer requirement, and we will get into that in more detail. But you can actually customize your experience here and potentially change employers post arrival, change location, have a more flexible, customizable experience once you get here.
Hmm.
I had the good fortune and privilege to enjoy that about a decade ago, and it really set me on the way to staying here full time. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, working holiday is by far the most popular. The young professionals requires you to get a job offer sort of related to your studies that
Hmm.
have been completed,
Hmm.
and then the international co-op is for people who want to get a job offer in their ongoing studies. Um, so there are slight differences there. Working holiday, unless we're talking about young professionals or international co-op, you can assume that we're talking about working holiday, which I think
Yeah.
is
And the international co-op, it requires you to be a student and be pursuing like a student internship in Canada in order to be eligible. So it's not an option for most people. We
yeah.
got a couple of questions coming in here that we'll address just before we move on to some of our COVID talk. But Sam is asking us, what's the point of the job offer requirement when processing times for IEC are showing as 48 weeks? So I saw this question kind of floating around our Facebook group a little bit earlier today. IRCC has a website where you can look at the most recent processing times for certain programs. Throughout the pandemic, they've said don't look at that because it's not accurate. And I'm guessing that the reason that it says it's 48 weeks is because back at the beginning of the pandemic, like a year ago, they paused all the IEC applications and they only really started processing them like a month and a half ago. So it's probably referring to the processing times that they have, like that average based on all those applications that were submitted in 2020 that they had to pause for like almost a full year. I'm guessing that they will speed that up for this year, simply as you mentioned, Sam, due to the fact that people are submitting these job offers, they have to, start the
Yeah,
job. So don't freak out too much about what you're seeing on the IRCC processing time site, because that's
yeah.
most likely a misnomer.
You know, like the government, this is just like a broader point. The Government of Canada website is incredibly detailed and generally well maintained, but there are situations like this where they put out data and you have to interpret it sometimes differently, like and not read it like as if it's permanently true. Um, that's one good example, and this is why we created Moving to Canada Go, which we'll get into in a few minutes. It's one of the reasons is that like it's the Government of Canada website is such a maze, and we just want to get people the right information at the right time in their journey. It's not there to replace the Government of Canada website; it's to help you navigate it
Yep.
as well as other things. So
And I've
yeah,
just pulled up the Go landing page here. Again, you guys, if you're looking for detailed information about each of these tasks, you can head over here. We'll give a live demo of this in a little bit, but it's a totally free resource that we designed specifically to help people who are in your situation. So we highly recommend checking that out and using this to plan your entire IEC process.
yeah.
So,
Can I take a question before we move on?
yeah,
Just
of course.
Kira O'Mara goes, can you talk about lifestyle over there at the moment? Is it hard to meet new people at the moment? Are most restaurants, cafes, shops, hairdressers, etc. open? And Dane, just like you're in Nova Scotia and I'm in Montreal, Quebec,
Yeah.
and the point I really like to make, Kira, is I'm in downtown Montreal where restaurants and bars and most office buildings have been off limits since the end of the summer. We actually have a curfew right now. We're not allowed out after 8 p.m.
Yeah.
And that's been in place since, well, a good few weeks now. It feels like since about Christmas time, maybe just after. Um, but Dane, you're in Nova Scotia where you're having a bit of a different experience, right? So maybe just, yeah,
I mean, in Nova Scotia, we've sort of Atlantic Canada, the East Coast, has done really well throughout the pandemic. We have very strict travel, like border measures in place. So even if someone's coming from another province in Canada to Nova Scotia, they have to go through this really strict isolation for 14 days. Because of that, there's almost no COVID here. There's like no community spread. So life is pretty normal in Nova Scotia. Like I can have, up to 10 people over for dinner. I can go out to a restaurant. I go to the gym every day. So it's pretty normal here. But like Canada's a massive country. So even like insofar as like the COVID situation is different from province to province, you'll find that like the lifestyle and the culture also differs dramatically. Even the landscape. Like if you go to Vancouver, uh, there's like gonna be not very much snow over the course of the winter versus if you're in Montreal, like what was it yesterday? Like minus 30 there or something?
No,
Minus.
it was minus 15.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We had a minus
No,
20
I
morning
mean,
here.
I'd say that as if minus 15 is some sort of mild uh, temperature. Obviously, it's not, but there's a difference between minus 15 and minus 30 of about 15 degrees.
Right.
But like on the lifestyle question, our colleague Rory, based in Vancouver, like he's been up in the hills snowboarding for the last few weeks, etc. So
Yeah.
like those activities remain open.
Hmm.
Which is great. You know, people need an outlet, especially those kind of sports that you can do social distancing with.
Yeah.
Um,
And like,
so
well, on that note too, like just if you're wondering like what life is going to look like because you're all watching this stream, you probably haven't received, I mean, invitations haven't been issued, you're still a few months away from coming to Canada. Like we're hoping things will improve. Canada's vaccine rollout is like happening. The prime minister keeps promising that like everyone who wants a vaccine will be able to have gotten one by the end of September. So like we're hoping that there's we'll have a time limit on this thing, but I don't know enough about public health to tell
yeah,
you that for certain. Before we jump into the COVID updates, we've got a couple of questions here. I'm going to read Sierra's because I think this summarizes it pretty well. Sierra asked, if I enter the pool and receive an invitation but then decide not to go ahead, would I be able to apply again next year instead? So Hugo, can you talk about like what counts as a participation in IEC?
yeah. The threshold for counting for participation, people might think it's to have like feet on the ground in Canada. That's not the case. Okay, so Canada will deem that you have participated under the IEC program once it has issued what's called a port of entry letter of invitation or introduction. Sorry, port of entry letter of introduction, commonly called a POE letter or an LOI letter or an approval letter, more colloquially. If you get one of those, you have participated, even if you haven't actually jumped on a plane and come to Canada. So if you want to back out before that letter is issued, especially if you think you might want to come to Canada under this program in the future instead.
Yeah.
Like we do get that inquiry more often than we'd like, Dane, right? You know, someone says I got my letter, something happened at home, I got a promotion at work, there was a family thing or whatever. Now can I come again? And rather than saying no, you can't come to Canada, we have to say you have to look into these alternative programs. And generally, those alternatives are more difficult to navigate than the IEC. So,
Right.
um, yeah,
And just to clarify on in the other direction, I've seen this come through from a few people. Like Gabriella asked, my partner hasn't submitted his application because he doesn't currently have a job offer. Should he still submit his application or should he wait until he has a job offer? So I'm going to clarify a bit of a technical difference here. When you submit yourself to the pool initially, you're submitting what's called a profile. That's not actually an application. You're more or less just expressing your interest in IEC, in participating. Uh, if your profile is selected, you receive what's called an invitation to apply. It's after you receive that invitation to apply, you can either accept it or decline it. You have 10 days to make that decision, and then another 20 days to submit the application. And that application is what they assess to determine if they're going to issue that port of entry letter of introduction. So creating a profile, just that first step before you get the invitation, before you submit the application, creating a profile is very low stakes. It doesn't count as a participation. You can just sit in the pool all year. If you don't get an invitation, you can go back in the pool the next year, as long as you're still eligible. But there's no harm in having your profile in the pool. Of course, this year you need, in order to move from that profile stage to receive your invitation, you now need to have this job offer. You have to email it to them, and we'll go into detail about that later. But just submitting yourself to the pool, no harm in doing that. Um, because you can always pull your profile out or decide not to submit your application if you receive an invite, and that won't negatively affect your ability to participate in the future.
Yeah. Dan, can I just say as well, like we're getting so many questions here, and it's not going to be possible to deal with each one live,
Yeah.
but we will be jumping back into this event and making sure that everyone gets, a response at some point. We're going to have to move along with the things we want to share today, and on all the other news updates,
Yeah.
and resources. But we will be we might not be able to answer every question live, but we'll get around to it, later this week.
Yeah, and I will answer one question from Dave that relates to what we were just talking about. He says that means you can join the pool and simply not accept your invitation to apply. Yes, when you get your invitation to apply, you are given the choice to accept it or decline it. And if you decline it,
Yep.
that you can still participate in IEC. It doesn't count as a participation. So
Yep.
again, it's low risk to enter the pool initially. So let's move into our big question about the changes due to COVID, and we're specifically going to talk about the new job offer requirement for working holiday participants. Let me do a quick little screen share here. We've gotten a ton of questions about this requirement. This came out, the same time about a week ago when they announced the pools were opening. They said, in order to receive an invitation to apply, working holiday participants are going to need to submit a job offer from a Canadian employer. This is the first time that working holiday participants have needed a job offer in order to receive the invitation to apply. But it's actually somewhat similar to a COVID travel requirement that the government brought in last year. So when Canada closed the borders last March, holy moly, nearly a year ago,
Mm.
they brought in an exemption to the border closure for IEC participants who had a valid job offer from a Canadian employer. Okay, so they brought this in, but it was at a later stage. You only had to show it when you showed up at the border. So what they've done now is they've moved this way forward, way earlier in the application process. So now you need to upload that job offer in order to be considered. We talked before about the different stages, like submitting to the pool, receiving your invitation, submitting your application. You don't need the job offer to submit to the pool. You need to upload it after your profile is in the pool, and you won't receive an invitation until you upload the job offer. So it's after you submit to the pool, before you receive the invitation. Okay. And we have an FAQ here that has, I'm scrolling through it right now. You can see I've answered like 12 different questions in detail here about the job offer requirement. We'll answer a couple of the common questions that we've had come through, and I picked out a couple from our Facebook group in advance. So Jack asked us, what jobs qualify for IEC now? Are workaways valid? Does it make a difference if it's paid or not paid? And also, does the duration make a difference? So, a few things to unpack here. First, for people who aren't familiar with the term workaway, workaway is a scenario in Canada where you come and you like live. They often take place at like a farm or some sort of agricultural endeavor, and you will contribute labor to the farm, and in return you receive room and board. So they're gonna give you a place to sleep, they're gonna feed you, but they're not gonna pay you. So it's like not really a paid position. And to be honest, at this point in time, and let me see, because we've got a good answer here. At this time, we don't know how strict IRCC is going to be when they're assessing these job offers. As such, we don't know if you're going to require like a wage, like you're going to have to show that you're being paid, or if like a volunteer position will be sufficient. As a point of reference, we can look back at what happened when the border restriction was brought in last year and they had this job offer requirement for entry. At that time, and this is all based on anecdotes, we saw that IRCC wasn't being selective based on the skill level of occupations. Any skill level was accepted, or the wages, as long as there was some kind of wage offered. We saw in some instances, IRCC would allow people to enter using these unpaid workaway positions, But we also heard anecdotal reports where people were refused entry when they showed up with a workaway or a volunteer position. Um, so suffice all that to say that IRCC wasn't super strict last year about what counted as a job, but now they must have some sort of formula in place. And as the season progresses, I think we'll get a sense from these anecdotal reports what is working as a job offer and what isn't. And if you follow our I'll pop a link to this page that I'm on right now, the Working Holiday Canada News Hub. If you follow this news hub, we will, of course, post updates on this as soon as we have more information. Okay, so
Then on that, I just want to like ram it home and be really clear. I've seen a couple of comments come in like, do I definitely need a job offer to be invited? And currently, yes, 100%. IEC has been really clear about this. It's a new requirement. What Dane was referring to is last year people could get their letter of invitation and then get a job offer in land. This year, in order to be able to apply for the letter of invitation, which requires an invitation, you need a job offer. So you can create your IEC profile, but then you need a job offer to be invited in any case. So hopefully that's really clear for people.
yeah,
Right now.
and people have also asked us like, how long will this last? Let me see if we've got an answer to this. Yeah, so the job offer requirement, like it it should be a temporary requirement based on the
Yeah,
pandemic. So we don't know how long it's going to last, but we know that they will lift it eventually. They could lift it, once Canada has COVID really under control, and that might be, only in a few months, hopefully. But I think there's a substantial possibility that they could keep it in place for the entirety of the 2021 season. So people should be preparing for that possibility. But maybe we'll have
remaining hopeful. Yeah.
yeah, it's important to be hopeful these days.
The other thing as well about the working holiday is like this program isn't intended to satisfy Canada's labor market needs. Canada's got other immigration programs for that purpose. This is about cultural exchange, allowing Canadians also the opportunity to go abroad and people from abroad to come to Canada. And I think that over time, once the pandemic is something we read about in history books and not the newspaper, um, that will return to a situation where that becomes the first and foremost in the eyes of the government of Canada, that this is about an exchange of young people, giving young people opportunities to work in different countries, not necessarily uh, totally focused on Canada's labour market needs. So I would be hopeful, very hopeful and confident that the job offer requirement will be gone, as Dane said, once the pandemic subsides and is gone. But obviously, we can't say that that's going to be in June or September or next week or next year.
Mm-hmm.
We just have to wait and see.
And we've gotten this question a ton of times from a bunch of different people. I'm not in Canada. How am I supposed to find a job offer?
Yeah,
You're not in Canada. You don't have your work permit approval yet. How are you supposed to find the job offer? The honest truth is that it is, a hurdle that you have to overcome. Like in many cases, it will be a challenge for people to do this. It's not impossible. We saw people do it throughout the course of last year, and we've already seen a
yeah,
lot of people submit their job offers this year. I've pulled open on the Working to Canada the Working Holiday Canada News Hub here, which I just put the link in the comment section. This answer to the question. We've got some links here we've got a resume guide if you want to go through and make sure your CV is tailored to Canadian standards. We've got a jobs board on the Moving to Canada website as well. And we've even got a free resume template that you can access just by creating a free Moving to Canada account. We also had a community member last year, Lori Lee, who wrote this really wonderful piece about how to get a job in Canada for IEC when you're applying virtually from outside Canada. So I'm just going to give that a second to load, and then I'll pop the link to that into the comment section as well. But the other opportunity that we wanted to raise awareness about, and Hugo, maybe you can tell our viewers a bit about this while I pop Lori's article in here, is Young Guns,
mm-hmm.
who we've partnered with. Who are Young Guns, and what is the opportunity with them?
Yeah. So, like as last year progressed, it became clear that a job offer was going to be more of a thing in the application process for IEC. We partnered with Young Guns Container Crew, which is a company that originally is based in Australia but has significant operations in Canada, specifically in Toronto and Vancouver. They unload shipping containers at ports. For a lot of people, this is like might not sound like the most exciting job, but for a lot of other people, like it's cool, it's fun. Like you're with like a team every day, and you're like just hustling. You're moving stuff from A to B to C, um, and it's well paid. And they are issuing job offer letters to IC candidates. Dane, we met with them again. Just we checked in a few days ago with them just to sort of make sure that they're up to speed on
Yeah.
the latest requirements, and they are. And we do have an onboarding form on our website for Young Guns, and they have had great success hiring and retaining IEC working holiday candidates in the past, and they continue to do so today. So that's just one employer that we're working with to solve problems for people, as well as solve the business needs of the employer. And we're always on the lookout for legit businesses that are issuing job offer letters to IEC candidates. One thing I would say is I stress the point legit. There are shady characters out there in the world who might offer you something that looks too good to be true. Don't pay for a job offer. That's not a thing that's allowed in Canada. Um, and also just make sure that your potential employer is sort of up to speed on the requirements um,
Mm-hmm.
that they will need to provide for the IEC 2021. Young Guns is fully briefed, and they're a brilliant business. But we're hopeful in the coming weeks of working with other businesses in other locations across Canada for similar opportunities, not just in labouring like this, but hopefully more positions that offer other opportunities to people across a broad demographic.
Yep, and I've pulled open the Young Guns form on our website. I put a link to that right there in the comments, so anyone who is interested can apply there. They're hiring in Toronto and Vancouver, and as Hugo mentioned, one of the challenging things about finding the job offer is finding an employer who understands like the immigration process. Like most employers don't want to have to learn how
Yeah,
immigration works in order to hire people. Thankfully, with Young Guns, they can always lean on us when it comes to the immigration. Like we had a meeting with them, we sent them a brief on how it works, um, and
you might. Sorry, Dane. People will hear a lot when they make inquiries. Oh yeah, you look like a really good candidate. You'll do a video interview, and then the employer will say, "When you get to Canada, let's go for a coffee." You know, not quite understanding that this person needs that job offer in order to come to Canada in the first place, and it's tricky to get that information across to a potential employer. Um, and also it's not really something the employer necessarily wants to hear. They're trying to solve a business challenge. They don't want to hear that it's going to take weeks or months for you to arrive and that they have to write this letter. And they're like, I'll just hire someone around the corner instead. Um,
Mhm.
so it's like your networking skills, your ability to like promote yourself. Like those are things that like if it doesn't come naturally to you, you might have to work on. First step is Canadianizing your resume. I can't stress that enough. Um, but also like your networking game, like at thousands of kilometers from Canada, you're gonna have to work on that. And
Yeah,
we've got guides and resources for that purpose.
we
But
do.
like especially now when you're gonna have to tell employers, yo, I need this job offer. Um, Here's why I'm great. And like, but I can't actually come to Canada and meet you for a coffee first. That's not how it works anymore. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
and I
unfortunately.
we had a good question come in from John, who's looking at the form, and he says that the form is asking, when do you expect to arrive in Canada? So I mean, John, you can put in your preferred arrival date in there. Again, Young Guns is aware of the timeline for each of the various steps involved, and so that's going to be something that you can discuss with them at a later stage in the application process if you are determined to be a strong candidate for them. And we've been advising that they can even put that in like the upload it in the government documents as well. Like we're hoping the Canadian government will be a little bit flexible too, because they want to know when the start date for positions is, but then like the start date is also going to be kind of dependent on how fast they are at processing applications. So there's just a few variables that need to be worked out before.
Common sense, guys. Like, don't say that your starting date is tomorrow. You know,
Yeah.
If you're looking for a job and it asks when you expect to arrive in Canada, I would at the earliest put it 2 months in the future. So it's March 4th today. I wouldn't put it for March or April. And you know, if you're putting May, know that that's optimistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, 2 months is probably the earliest possibility, and we're not aware of how they're going to be processing things this year. So just be aware that it could take a little bit longer than that. So
The reason I said that as well is also the mandatory quarantine, right? So
yeah.
like you've got your processing time for the work permit, then you got 2 weeks post arrival before you can actually turn up on site. So that's why I'm saying 2 months is probably the minimum that you're looking at between if you're applying for a job.
I'm just going to tackle a couple other common questions that we get about the new job offer requirement. Let me switch our view here. So people have been asking us, you know, if I'm approved, can I still change employers once I'm in Canada? Which is a good question. You'll see our answer here, like based on the information that we have available, the working holiday participants will receive the same work permit as they've always received, which is an open work permit. So that does enable you to change employers once you're in Canada. That being said, if there is an employer who is, you know, willing to hire IEC participants from outside the country and, you know, grant this sort of golden job offer letter that's required for this year, you might want to, you know, be a good guy and like give them some quality time in that position, because if one IEC participant, you know, messes with the employer, then they're probably not going to be very excited about hiring other IEC participants. So, you know, don't mess it up for everyone.
And don't underestimate the ability of like chambers of commerce locally and stuff to lobby the Canadian government. And if they say, oh, all these working holiday makers, they just turn up, they turn up for work on a Monday and they hand in their notice on Tuesday, don't be surprised if that then has a knock-on effect on the requirements a few months down the line. So yeah, if you're going to get a job offer, be cool, like put in a few months at least.
Be cool, guys. Be cool. It's easy. Easiest instructions we'll ever give.
I'm going to do a very quick answer to a question from Holly, who asks, any suggestions to make your CV more appropriate for Canadian employers? Holly, great question. I'm going to call it resume for the moment. I'd encourage you to call it resume whenever you're interacting with a Canadian recruiter or employer. I think, Dane, when we do the run through of Go, what we can do is show how you can complete your Moving to Canada profile and get a resume template at the end. So we'll do all that together. That is the best way to look to improve your CV, is to get a template from us and adapt it to your needs. And
that's actually a really good point for Hugo. Did you see this last comment that came in? I'm hoping that you can pronounce this person's name. Maybe. I'll read the question.
Yeah, Rika.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
What should be priorities for arriving in Canada after quarantine? So setting up a bank account, new phone number, etc. Moving to Canada GO, again, it handles every stage of IEC. Yeah. So we have a whole list of tasks that you should consider once you complete your landing process and you are in Canada.
Great question from Rika. Let's can I just take the phone number one there? Mm-hmm. Is we've partnered with sort of a challenger brand in Canada called Phonebox, and we've seen a huge uptake among people simply because they have a fully digital onboarding journey. So they've got great data plans, and they've offered Moving to Canada community members some exclusive plans within those. But they can actually get you a SIM card to your address, and you never have to turn up and at a store ever. As long as you've unlocked your phone, you can pop that in and get going. Yeah. Some banks offer a digital onboarding, although those are a bit clunky at times, depending on the bank. But yeah, quarantine is a great time to sort of cross these things off your list, and Moving to Canada GO is sort of offers a great checklist of things to do pre and post arrival.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I think we've been talking about moving to Canada Go a bunch. Maybe we should just
Yeah.
jump into it. If there are questions we haven't answered about the job offer requirement, again, the link is in the description. It's our Working Holiday Canada News Hub where you can get all of those FAQs there. So check that out. But I'm going to do a quick little demo of Moving to Canada Go. My computer, I'm going to warn everyone, my computer is running the live stream and like 1,000 programs right now. So she's a bit overexerted. So we're hoping she's going to stand up to doing this live demo, but we'll see. So Moving to Canada Go is our free interactive tool. You provide a little bit of personal data, and then Go is going to provide you with a task list. So I'm just going to do a quick example here, as though I am an Australian citizen. And then it will ask you what are you currently doing in your planning process. So I'm going to say I'm planning my move to Canada, as most of you seem to be. And then you can select your goal. So I'm going to say work and have fun, gain professional work experience. Both of those are answers we kind of decided would fit into the IEC realm of things. So you can select either of those. And then your birth date. So I'm not going to tell you guys when I was born. My hairline tells enough. I'm just going to lie and say that I am Gen Z. I could be Gen Z. And my name is Dane. And then I click sign up, and we'll see how quickly my computer can move with this. And it should take us through a pretty straightforward onboarding process. Here we go. Yeah, she's moving a bit slow. So look, now it comes back and it says, based on your country of residence and your age, country of citizenship rather, it looks like you may be eligible to live in Canada through the IEC Working Holiday Program. So then you just have to create your free account. So you're going to have to put in your email address, and I'll make one up here. You can subscribe to our newsletter if you want, and then we email you if there's ever any like major IEC updates, that sort of thing. You don't have to worry about, checking the news all the time. And you give your intended arrival date, because that will affect some of the timing for various tasks. And then you create a password. So I'll create a fake password right now. Well, it's a real password, but for a fake account. And then we click go. And again, my computer's running a little slow, so hang with us for a sec. I'll take a sec to read through our comments and see if we've got anything coming in. If you guys do have questions about anything that you see in Go, ask them. Hugo's reading through them, and I'll come back and view them a little bit later. Okay, great. So Go has loaded, and you can see it gives you a little welcome tour. I'm going to close the welcome tour for now, but you can go through that later on if you'd like. And now you can see what the Moving to Canada Go dashboard looks like. It gives you a little summary on the left-hand side about, what's your moving date, have you changed your plans, where are you moving in Canada, so you can put in your preferred destination, and it will actually, streamline resources about like Toronto if you choose Toronto. But perhaps one of the most powerful things here is the progress checklist. And you'll see some of the tasks from the progress checklist over on the right-hand side. But if I click go to my checklist, it's going to take me to the many tasks that are required throughout the IEC process. And you can filter these tasks based on the importance level, like what are my most important tasks, what are my upcoming tasks, what have I completed. You can also filter them by, you can change it and filter it by category if you want to do like immigration or employment tasks versus timeline. I think the timeline is a really valuable way if you're at the beginning of the journey to organize things. So I can just view my getting ready tasks. And it will tell you, what's most important, what should I be working on versus, what are the other tasks that I can be paying attention to at this point in time. So let's just open the first task here, find out if you're eligible to live and work in Canada through the IEC program. Oh, wow, Inception. That's me last year when I had a giant beard. Still got a beard. It's just not quite as long. So as you can see, this is what the task layout looks like. Like it's going to give you a little bit of an explanation, like find out if you're eligible to live and work in Canada. Like it gives you the steps here, like visit the Come to Canada tool. That's where you have to start to find out your eligibility. We have answers to some of the common questions here. Like people frequently ask us, like, what do we answer to this question? What do we answer to this question? We've given you all of that information here. And then it will give you a personal reference code. So we'll actually, I'll just open that. We can show you the Come to Canada tool here in a second.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's tons of other tasks here that are important, like things like check that your passport has sufficient remaining validity.
Mm.
Like something that's really important that we've had questions come in about that. And we've also updated it for 2021. New and mandatory, you got to provide your job offer. And it has all the instructions here. Like we didn't tell you so far like how to upload the job offer, but we've got a link to the government website where you can do that here. So as you can see, this is just like replete. Is that a word? Replete with valuable information. I should know if the words I use are words before I use them.
We had an
Um,
office sweepstakes on when you'd next say replete thing.
replete. It was right now.
Can
Should
I just,
have.
while you're going through this, like, I really want to like get across to people that the purpose of moving to Canada Go is not to replace the government website. It's actually to streamline it for you because we get so many inquiries and people going, "This is where I am. What's the page I go to?" This tool basically says, "This is where you're at. This is the page you go to. You complete the action. In this case, it would be to find out if you're eligible, and Dane's about to show people how that might be done. And then once you tick that off, the tool will update itself and show you what comes next.
Right.
So, with respect to what you need to show to the government of Canada, so it's not about replacing. We're not down for that. The government of Canada does an amazing job of processing these applications. I know they've got challenges right now due to COVID. We're just trying to help people navigate the process. And since we launched this thing a year ago, we've had really good feedback from people, and it's helped us to improve the features and optimize. I see Adam in the comments there just saying amazing tool. Adam, I appreciate that very much. We work very hard on it. But we do actually have on the dashboard there a form that people can complete to give us feedback, so that we can help them more in the future. And we get submissions through to that, and the vast majority of them are very positive. But we actually want people to tell us how it might be improved.
Yeah, and I did just want to address, the capability that people have to filter things here. So we had a lot of questions about, how do I find it work in Canada? Like, what are the steps that I can take? And as you see, if you go into Go and you filter by category and you choose employment, it's going to give you some tasks that are related to employment. So revise your CV to fit Canadian employers' expectations. And then within that task, we've got our whole guide on resume formats. You have our free resume template downloadable there. So just some like it's very powerful here. You can also filter by people had talked about like when I'm in Canada, like what are the things that I should do? Like open a bank account, get a
That
cell
goes back
phone
to
plan,
Rieka's
like
question just a few minutes ago.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And you'll see at this point, like you can't actually complete these tasks, and that's because you haven't landed in Canada yet. Once you tell us that you've landed in Canada, they'll all open up for you. So yeah, it's a very powerful tool. It's totally free. I think that's really important to hammer home there. Like I think the person's name was Ziga. They were asking earlier, like, are you guys representatives? Like, what are you? Like, what are you doing here? So we're a free information resource. We are simply here to help people get through the immigration and settlement process for the moves to Canada as simply as possible. This is easily the most powerful tool that we've developed, and it's only for IEC at this time. So definitely take advantage of that because, like we said, it's totally free.
yeah.
Yeah. Anything else
And
you want
just
to add there?
before you launch into that first task about the Come to Canada tool, Dane, if you can just flick to the dashboard and show that there's also articles that we link people to, that are of interest to them. And once you tell us that you want to move to Toronto or Vancouver or Montreal, those articles will be dynamic and adapt to your goals.
Yeah.
So depending on where you want to move to and where you're coming from, etc. So
Yeah.
I updated that list yesterday, and I'll keep it updated throughout the year.
Yeah, and there's
Um,
super useful resources. Like I just came here, and one of the resources is it's telling me to look at is when should you begin the IEC process. Like we haven't even talked about that, but people have that question all the time. So you might not be even be
yeah,
aware that you want these resources, but we're gonna show them to you.
yeah.
Um,
And we'll be adding to this to Moving to Canada Go throughout the year as well in terms of features and functionality. So,
yeah.
um, yeah,
So we did just want to show you, how to complete this first task. Like it's asking you find out if you're eligible to live and work in Canada through the IEC program. To do that, you have to complete the Come to Canada tool on the IRCC website. I've already opened that tool, but I'm going to give a quick walkthrough because we get a lot of questions about like what you're supposed to answer to different questions here. So we just wanted to do a quick like test version of like how to get through this tool. So this is used to assess, like the government of Canada uses this for all of its immigration programs, so some of the questions don't, like they seem like they're not relevant to IEC, and it's because they're not relevant to IEC. So you can read through this page, but when you're ready you click check your eligibility and it brings you to the form. And so it starts off by asking you what would you like to do in Canada. You have to give the answer IEC travel and work. When you answer this question, you have to choose IEC or it's not going to consider you for IEC. So just make sure that you make that selection. Even though, you might want to select like work or move there. Like both of those seem to work. I tested this last year and it was only IEC travel and work that functioned. I also tested this question: how long are you planning to stay in Canada? And you can actually select any of these answers and it will still consider you for IEC. So temporarily less than 6 months, temporarily more than 6 months, or permanently. We're going to choose just more than 6 months, but again, it's not relevant. And then you have to select your passport. So I'm going to, again, do Australia just because we know they're eligible. And I'm going to choose Australia for my country of residence as well. As I mentioned, sometimes you need to be residing in your country of citizenship to be eligible. So that can sometimes impact. And then it asks you, do you have a family member who's a Canadian citizen or permanent resident? This is not relevant to IEC. You should answer truthfully, but
yeah,
it's not going to affect your eligibility. And then your date of birth. I'm going to go back to my fake Gen Z existence as being born in 1998. It's believable. And then it's just going to verify my information here. You can click next. Now, it's going to ask, do you have a letter proving one of these organizations will help you plan your trip or find work in Canada? And then a list of organizations. These are called recognized organizations, and they are a method of applying to IEC for your working holiday, but they're not, like most people don't use recognized organizations and you don't have to go through one. So some people get here and they're like, oh no, like do I have to have something from one of these? Absolutely not. You don't have to. There are, sometimes benefits to going with an RO, a recognized organization, and we've got guides to that on our website. But for most people, the answer to that question will be no. And then it's just going to confirm your country or territory of permanent residence. Again, I'm just going to say Australia here.
yeah. That like quick one on that is like if you happen to be abroad for a week, although that's not really an option for lots of people right now. So let's say you're Irish and you happen to be filling out this form while visiting a family member in Spain. You answer Ireland to that question. That is your country of permanent residence, not Spain.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question here is, do you plan to do a work placement or internship in Canada as part of your studies? The as part of your studies is a really important component there. This is what they're using to assess for the international co-op program. If you remember back to the beginning of the live stream, there are 3 different like IEC programs. International co-op is aligned with like students who are doing internships. So this is only for international co-op. Most people will say no unless you're going through that program. Okay. And then it will ask, do you have a signed letter of offer, contract of employment, or internship agreement from an employer in Canada? So this is asking about a job offer. So we've had a bit of confusion and a lot of questions this year. Like I'm going through working holiday, but I already have my job offer. Do I have to answer yes to this question? Do I answer no to this question? I've checked this. You can answer no to this question, and it will still let you into the working holiday pools. If you answer yes, it's going to also say that you're eligible for young professionals, which is a bit more of a complex process, and it issues a closed work permit. So if you're going through the working holiday program, I'm going to recommend that you say no to this question, and it will still say that you're eligible for the working holiday at the end. And then another question about studies. Are you registered at a college or university? Again, that's assessing for international co-op. Then I click next, and you see it brought me through. Even though I said I don't have a job offer right now, I'm still eligible for the working holiday. I can click continue, and we talked about it giving you your personal reference code. You can get that code here and then proceed to start working on your application through the government website. So I could take that code and come back to Moving to Canada Go, and look, have I done all the steps? Yes, I have done all the steps. And then I would say, yes, I'm done this task. And then it will bring up the rest of my important tasks. Once I check that my passport has sufficient validity left, then it's going to tell me now I can go into my IRCC account and create my account or update it with my new information to submit myself to the pools for the year. Great. So that's lots of screen sharing. I'm just going to take a minute to read through some of the questions that have come through. Or Hugo, anything that I missed there? Anything else you want me to point out, or any good questions?
Yeah, I mean, there's great questions coming in. There's so many that it's hard to pick out one. I will go with one from Mickey, who asks, living in Northern Ireland, is it better to put UK or Ireland as the country of residency? Does it go by what passport you have? So to answer your question in reverse, Mickey, it does depend on what passport you have. If you happen to have both a British and an Irish passport, you are welcome to enter both pools simultaneously, assuming that you satisfy the requirements for both, which in this case would require you to be 30 years or less for the UK pool. And the benefit of dual citizenship is that you are essentially have two lottery tickets rather than one, because it is a random invitation process. Also, if you want to take a second participation down the line, so you want to do 2 years on your Irish passport or your British passport, you can potentially get another 2 years as someone from the other country down the line. So you could get 4 years, which is a bit of a treat, given that most people only have one passport.
We've got a bunch of questions coming in here about passports. Gary asked, can you apply if your passport expires before your visa ends? Can you update it when you get a new one? Rebecca said, can you talk about the validity of passports? How long should it be valid for? So Hugo, we talked about this a little bit beforehand, and I've got the IRCC resource pulled up here, but can you give our folks a little bit of info about passport validity?
Yeah, so there are very few situations where you can extend an IEC work permit, one of which is that you got a new passport. So if you you can apply to extend your participation if your work permit was only valid until your passport expired. There aren't any fees, but it is just, it's bureaucracy. It's talking to government departments. It's annoying. If you do my advice would be, like, if you're not planning to come to Canada for another few months, get your passport sorted out first. It's just easier.
Yeah.
But if you happen to be invited and applied and approved under an existing passport that is less than that will expire before what your potential work permit validity would be. So if I'm British and I would expect to come to Canada for 2 years, but my passport expires in 11 months, my work permit will only be issued for that 11-month period. There is a process you can use to extend it, but it is cumbersome, and I would advise that you get your passport sorted out earlier before applying, if you can.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be the easier way to do things. And look, I'll pull up our task here on passports. So one of our tasks is check that your passport has sufficient remaining validity. Your passport must be valid when you apply and when you enter and depart from Canada. And almost word for word what Hugo just said, if your passport's due to expire within the next couple of years, it's a good idea to apply for a passport to avoid hassle later on. And what to do depends on where you're at in the application process. So you guys can see that a lot of the questions coming in, you can actually find we have much more robust resources here within the Moving to Canada Go environment than Hugo and I can give.
All the common questions are here. Like the first thing that people should be doing after this event, which I think we've only got a few minutes left, is to create their Go account, or if you've already got one, to log in and check for the updates we've made in the last few weeks. And to really get this kick-started and get answer to your key questions. It's all there and Go. And if it's not there, there's a form you can fill out and you can ask for a question there, and we'll make sure that we take that into account when we make updates. So
yeah,
that's what people should be doing after this event.
And one of the other important things that has always been a mandatory requirement for IEC is the insurance requirement. I think we'll give just a quick overview of that, and there must be a task for it in Go. One would hope. Is it here? Take out an eligible insurance policy. So we've got this. It is mandatory to have travel insurance for the full duration of your stay in Canada. Like let's say you're applying from Ireland, you're eligible for a 2-year visa, and you only get 12 months of insurance, and you show up, they're going to give you a work permit that's valid for only 12 months. And in that situation, you're not eligible to extend it.
Yeah.
So
on that then, a few weeks ago, I got an inquiry from Australian not a few weeks ago, it was about a year ago. And I see this all the time. It was like, I thought I'd only want to come to Canada for 4 months to do a winter season. I ended up loving it. I wanted to stay for longer, but my insurance policy was only valid for 4 months. Now I want to stay longer. If there's just get an insurance policy for the maximum duration of the potential of your work permit, because otherwise your work permit will be issued is likely to only be issued for the duration of the insurance policy, and there's no going back.
Yeah.
It's something. It's just, if there's any remote possibility that you might want to stay in Canada longer than the few months that you might plan to stay up front, just get the insurance policy, fork out that extra few dollars, get the insurance policy sorted up front, because you won't be able to go back and make that change later, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's every year there's people who get in touch with us going there must be a way, and we don't make the rules and there's no way.
Yeah, it's a bit of a it's going to cost you a little bit more. Obviously, you're getting a longer insurance policy, but you never know. You might come to Canada and then you'll fall in love and you'll regret that you have to leave your new love, whether it's a human or skiing, and you'll wish that you had more insurance. So I mean, this is our resource on insurance. We recommend you can always start with a quote from a company called Best Quote. They allow you to compare a bunch of different rates on the market. Again, my computer's kind of seizing up. Oh, now it's not loading anything. But you can access the Best Quote website from here, and they'll allow you to compare some different rates available, which is a pretty useful way to make sure that you are getting some of the more affordable rates out there. Of course, you don't want to be too cheap, or else you might not get coverage if you actually need it. So just a few things to be aware of there with insurance. Great.
One of the great things about Best Quote is that they're so familiar with working with IEC candidates that you can request a quote specifically for IEC, and you can be sure that those policies cover the minimum requirements for an insurance policy, which actually includes repatriation in the event of your death.
Oh, I've got the Best Quote website working now, so you can choose your type for IEC visa insurance, and then it will assess you for.
Yeah, and that's really useful and reassuring for people, because some people try to land and say they've got a private insurance policy in their own country, and they're they wave that to a border officer, and the border officer is no, that's not what you're meant to have.
Yeah,
you need something that's actually tailored for the IEC program, or that at least covers the minimum requirements for it.
Great. So Hugo, you're good to go a few more minutes. We got one more topic here. Actually, Lewis asked a great question here. since job offers are more of a requirement now, if the company you apply for a job with offers insurance as an employee benefit? Uh,
Like a group policy for employees or something.
yeah.
I would be hesitant to use that for the purposes of IC. Dane, I'm not sure. That's maybe you want to take that question.
My understanding, and now that you're being hesitant, I'm like, am I wrong? Is that you absolutely need a separate private insurance policy to show?
That's what I mean. I'm
Because
hesitant to
also
say
you like
that's like acceptable. I just wanted
you,
to be sure.
you won't be working
You're
for the company when you land in Canada, right? Like there's at least a
exactly.
2 week buffer before you start.
Yeah,
Most companies
yeah.
don't offer you insurance until you've been there for 3 months. Like, uh, I'm pretty sure that you need private insurance, but you know what,
Yeah,
Lewis,
no,
we'll
no.
we'll look into this and just come back and give you a answer with some resources after this is done. Um,
Oh, Dame, I think my point is you need something for landing in Canada. You need to have an eligible policy at that point. Um, and
yeah.
whatever the employer is offering likely won't satisfy that requirement. So you're better off getting an insurance policy, for example, from one of the companies that we recommend, as you just showed via Moving to Canada Go.
Holly asked another question here. If your profile on IRCC says expired, do you need to create a whole new account or just a new IEC application? You should be able to create a new profile within your existing account. But also, Holly, if you happen to be one of the UK people who submitted earlier this week and it said that it was expired, it might change. Like we were seeing it change for some people, so you might want to hold on for a day or two. Or you can create a new profile and see if that one works. It's a bit tough to tell the UK people what to do if they're still experiencing the glitches, because we really don't know how to resolve the glitches on IRCC's end. But Hugo, our last topic for today. This one is a fun topic for you because I am Canadian. I'm from Canada, so I'm I'm a bit biased when it comes to it, but we want to talk about how to make the most of your time in Canada. So, can you tell people, what are your best tips as someone who came here on IEC for making the most of your time here?
Wow. Like first of all, like the working holiday is amazing because it's so customizable. So if you land in Toronto and it's not working out after a few months, you can kind of like go somewhere else. Canada's a big country. It's the second largest in the world, spread across 6 time zones. It's got incredible diversity, not just in terms of the people, but also like the places. Um, Making the most of it, like it is an opportunity for people, especially if they're younger. I mean, I was 24 when I moved here, and it was a big opportunity just to like have new experiences, whether that's in work, but also socially. In terms of like the sports I did on weekends. Like yeah, I'm in Montreal. You can go skate. It's March, which you might think is spring. No, 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 no. March in Montreal is definitally
It's
winter. So
full
you can still go.
winter for at least
You
another
can go
month.
skating, snow, skiing, snowboarding. I
Snowshoeing?
generally snowshoeing. You can go cross country skiing.
Yeah.
Um,
They got a big park in the middle of downtown Montreal. It's glorious. Glorious.
Making the most. Yeah, yeah. Montreal Park's amazing. Making the most of your Canadian adventure is just about like for me, and I'm just leveraging my own experience here. It's just trying new things, um, not being too fussy. I think about your career, at least in the short term. Like just meet people, try new things, taste new foods. You can take advantage as well of towns and resorts and cities that are within the vicinity of your destination. So, uh, like if you are in Vancouver, get over to the island, go to the interior of BC, head up north a bit, not just to Whistler, but keep your foot on the gas and go beyond to Pemberton, like it, and whatever else lies beyond there. Get into hiking,
Golden.
go
Go to
camping,
Golden, BC. It's the only
wherever
place
that
I
is.
know.
I don't know where Golden BC is.
It's on the
Rory
other
should be
coast. I
here.
don't know. um,
um, just put yourself out there, and like a lot of people as well who are watching might not be from an English speaking background. They might like this is an opportunity as well to like really get into like become fluent in English, or if you're moving to Quebec as I did to work on your French.
mhm.
Um, and to socialize with people with way different backgrounds. Incredible diversity. Do you know, Dane, that around half the people in Toronto weren't even born in Canada? I'm not saying that they weren't born in Toronto. They
You know
weren't
what?
born in Canada.
I think it's 49% according to the
40, yeah,
2016 census, like something like that are first generation immigrants. Yeah, it's a staggering figure.
yeah. And it's a huge opportunity to just meet people. Um, I'm talking like pandemic aside. But like that was one of my favorite things, and I'm here a decade now, and you know, like my fiance is from Costa Rica, and like that wouldn't happen where I come from in Ireland necessarily. Well, it might today, but not when I was growing up. And like it's just a huge opportunity to meet people from around the world, and to learn a lot. In terms of popular destinations, what we see a lot is people often ask the question in our forums: should I go to Toronto or Vancouver? As if those are the only two potential destinations in Canada. And those are two very strong destinations, but there is a lot more to Canada. Some people, we say, have MTV syndrome, which is Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver. But like what we're seeing more now is that people are going to Vancouver Island, or they're going to Whistler, or they're going to Banff, or they're going to another location in Ontario. Ontario being the most populous province, where Toronto is.
Not the East Coast
Dane,
though.
yeah,
Left out the
there's
whole East Coast.
yeah,
People
you
love
get the
it here. It's
leftovers.
fun. It's a lot of Halifax, great city, man. Love it there.
I mean, I've never been, but I hear great things. Um, and
We also do have. I'm just gonna show off on our website. If you go to planning, um, picking a destination, we've got tons of guides on the various
yeah,
locations in Canada that you can choose from. So that's a good place to go for more resources.
yeah, and like, okay, let's just look at some of the questions that come in more on this stuff. I mean, I see who is it? Holly asks, what are some of the places to go and visit, or some of your favorite places to go? Dane, let's just deal with that for a moment. What's your favorite place to go? Pretending you're in, you can answer that as a Nova Scotian or as a Montrealer. Your choice.
My favorite places to go. I'm gonna do a couple of them. The ones that come right to the top of my brain. Cape Breton Highlands, which is a national park on the eastern tip of Nova Scotia. They're almost the furthest point east in all of Canada.
Mm,
Beautiful, like giant like hills, beaches. Like it's just gorgeous. Like it's absolutely gorgeous. On top of that, I would add Grand Manan, which is it's actually the island my mom is from, which is this little island off the coast of New Brunswick. It's about halfway between New Brunswick and Maine. And it's, again, this, like, not a lot of people know that it's there. It's this tiny little island of like 5,000 people. Again, the most beautiful, like, sights that you'll ever see, and just like quiet, lovely, serene location. And then the last place that I'd say is Montreal. Like, I love Montreal. It's such a wonderful, vibrant city to go to. There's like so much culture. There's so much art. It's like super gay. Not everyone's gay, but like, but it's got a lot of gay stuff, which is good for me. And I miss it a lot. Though, if you're gonna visit Montreal, I always say don't go in the winter. Go in the summer. It's a glorious city in the summer and can be a terrible city in the winter. What about
I
you,
mean,
Hugo?
yeah, just I mean, for some people here, winter is their favorite season because they're into skating and skiing and snowboarding. So just to put that caveat out there. Um, for me, the Laurentian Mountains, just north of Montreal. Every summer, I take a weekend and bike from the top of those mountains to the bottom. They're not really mountains. If an Albertan came over and saw them, they would barely call them hills. They're not that tall.
Right.
But I just love that. It's just lakes and streams and little towns where you can stop for an ice cream or a beer or a coffee, and you just do that for 3 days in a row. I've done that, I think, the last 3 summers in a row, and it's just like my favorite thing. Um, and then just to like put one out there that people may have heard of, like Niagara Falls isn't that far away, especially if you're in Toronto. The town itself is the cheesiest place you'll ever see,
The town
but
is a
the falls
terrible.
the falls are spectacular.
Yeah,
Falls are
the
spectacular.
falls live up to
Yeah,
their reputation, and
yeah.
not far from Niagara Falls is an area called Niagara on the Lake, which is like
Mm.
full of vineyards, and they have a theater festival there called the Shaw Festival, and you can get like a I went there in the summer before. I got a bike, and you like do a bike tour of the vineyards, then you finish off your day with like taking a piece of theater at the Shaw Festival. It's Canada, it's great. Remember traveling, everyone? Man,
Yeah,
we should
it'll be
just.
back.
It will be back
It'll
so
be back.
soon.
Yeah.
Um, okay. I think we got to wrap up here soon. There's one resource that I wanted to share just because it might not be in people's minds right now, but it can help if you think of it now. What to do if you are planning to immigrate to Canada permanently. So we've got a guide here on how to stay in Canada after your IEC working holiday. I'm not going to go into detail here, but just know that if you are planning, like if any part of your brain is like, I might actually want to stay in Canada for a number of years, it helps to plan that now because you need to meet certain requirements. Applying to stay in Canada permanently is much more complicated than applying for a working holiday. So I'm just going to put this resource here. I'll pop a link in the comments. And then if that's something you're considering, I highly advise you to read this as early as possible, just so you are prepping yourself for the long term.
Yeah.
Um, now,
Dane, before we end, or we just sorry, let's just make sure that people have access to Go. It is pinned in the comments, and also we'll throw out the URL before we finish up. Right?
yeah, uh,
Perfect.
I'm just putting this one in the comments now. We had a couple of questions that have been coming in right here at the end. We clarified these earlier on, but people may have missed them. Um, so people have been asking about like I saw Chris just asked, do you know when the first round of invitations will take place? And Jackie asked how many invitations will take place, and Sierra asked how many rounds will happen in total.
Hmm.
Hugo, can you shed some light on some of those questions?
The first invitations are set to be issued starting next Monday. That's March 8th. Generally, if previous years are any indication, those invitations are issued on an ongoing basis with results issued weekly. So there'll be, a few hundred for this country there, maybe a couple of dozen for that country there, on any given week. So, like, depends how long the if we're open from March, say, through to November, you're probably looking at 40 something rounds of invitation, assuming that they keep up a weekly schedule. But
Yeah.
it's 2021. It's not 2019. Things can change. But if past is any indication, there should be, I would say, at least 30 rounds of invitation and potentially up to 40
Yeah, and
over the course of the year.
there's a quota for each country too, right? So they usually
Yeah,
just like fill up the quota. Sometimes they'll even
yeah.
expand the quota. Like I think 2 years ago for the UK, they started with
UK.
5,000 and then they added another 5,000, or maybe it was double. Like I forgot the
Yeah,
exact
yeah, yeah.
numbers, but
I
like
think you're right.
something like that. And I have pulled up here for you guys our IEC Working Holiday News Hub. I just popped a link to that into the comments as well. If you want to get the information about invitation rounds, this is like bookmark this page. Like we update it pretty much weekly during the season, and we've got like this table with the participating countries. Like once they start issuing invitations, we'll update this table with like how many invitations have been issued, like what's the quota that's left, all of that sort of
And
stuff.
Dane,
Yeah.
what do you need to get an invitation this year?
You need a job offer. You need to upload
That's
your
right.
job offer. You email it into them.
And there
Um,
is a process for telling the government about your job offer. The easiest way to learn about that is through Go, because we've got a task there about how to tell the government about your job offer. So it really is like the answer to all your questions is like to have a Go account and to move through the process that way.
yeah, and I
Those who do that are telling us that they're loving it. So
there's a government webpage that has the instructions. I have it pulled up here, and it like has this sort of complicated list of things you have to do to tell them about your job offer. And again, you can get the URL for this website in your Go account. So again, if you want to create a Go account, click the link in the pinned comment. But I think we've pretty much covered everything for today. We've gone almost 90 minutes. That's pretty good. So I think we'll end off. We got some nice comments coming here at the end. Chris is thanking us for responses. Matt's telling everybody good luck. Um, Oh, Jermaine is saying there's still some issues with the UK pool, so just be aware if you're like there might be some issues with the UK pool. So if you're a UK person, those glitches are still happening. Inez is thanking us for the live chat, guys. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to do these live streams and to bring you guys the information that you are looking for. Again, for more information, sign up for Go by clicking the link in the pinned comment and follow along on the Working Holiday News Hub, where we will always post the latest news and updates. This live stream will be available on our Facebook page after we finish, and it will also go up on our YouTube channel probably later today or tomorrow. Thanks so much, and thank you for joining me, Hugo. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks for all your knowledge and hosting abilities.
No problem, and we will see you all next time.
Bye, guys.